UFC Fight Night, Fiziev versus Gamrot, full card predictions. Starting at the bottom, making my way to the top as always. First fight of the night, Montserrat Rendon versus Tamirez Vidal. Um, I'm going with Tamirez Vidal here. Part of the reason I always say this, so this won't come as much of a shock to any of you, but Tamirez Vidal is 25 years old compared to the 34-year-old Montserrat Rendon, and Tamirez Vidal has more experience. I think that is a big factor when you're only 25 years old and you're fighting someone that has less experience than you. 5-0 in MMA at 34 years old for Rendon. I don't think she's going to win this fight. Tamirez Vidal had that was a weird fight against Ramona Pasquale, her last fight. It was a flying knee. It didn't look like it even landed on the chin, or I don't know where it landed, but for however it landed, it did hurt Ramona Pasquale enough to finish her in that fight. And as far as Montserrat Rendon, this is her first UFC fight, right? First UFC fight. She hasn't been fighting really anybody good. 0-0 opponents, 1-0, 2-1, 3-2 Claudia Zamora, and then a 4-4 split decision 11 months ago. I watched part of that fight. She just looks stiff on the feet, and when you're 5-0 at 34 years old, I don't have much, expectation of you to really go far at this point. Especially someone that's basically, in my opinion, I think this is a setup fight for Vidal, and not much else to say about that one. Another one that's another setup fight. Some of you may not agree as much, but Mizuki Inoue versus Hannah Goldie. Listen, I'm picking Inoue because Hannah Goldie is her head even in the game? I mean, she probably cares more about her OnlyFans than she does about fighting at this point. I think that's pretty evident. But she's not the best fighter. Her striking kind of sucks. I mean, she is strong. I'll give her that. If you can look at her picture and tell. But even in her fights, like you can just tell by looking at her. She's very strong. But that's about the only compliment I can give her as far as her fighting ability. I mean, she got flatlined, not flatlined as like Molly McCann did knock her out, but I forget the other opponent that Molly McCann flatlined. Was it Juana Carolina? I'm not sure, but regardless, Hannah Goldie was another one that went over to London. Basically, was set up to lose to Molly McCann and did get knocked out by Molly McCann. This is a different fight, but I think Inoue, she's fought the better competition. I mean, if you look at Hannah Goldie's UFC, opponents, she's 1-3 in the UFC. Miranda Granger, she lost to her, lost to Diana Belbita, and then beat Emily Whitmire's 4-4. Like, she's not beating anybody good. And then for Inoue, like, she went to a split. I know she hasn't fought recently. She hasn't fought for 3 years. I get it. But her last fight was against Amanda Lemos. Before that, she fought on the regional scene, Virna Jandiroba, who I think is actually pretty good. At least a very good grappler, and went to a split with her. So I think Inoue is the clear side here. I think this is the second setup fight of the night. I think the first two women's fights of the night are just um, only made to make one fighter look good, and I think in this case it is definitely Inoue. So that's my pick for that one. Should be clear cut the first two. Now this is where it starts to get interesting because we have Jake Collier, Fat Man Collier versus Muhammad Usman. And I say Fat Man Collier, and listen, I'm not trying to be like an asshole to Collier, but it's the truth. He was a middleweight, and he was actually he was in pretty good shape at 185. He went from 185 to heavyweight 265. This dude packed on nearly 100 pounds of fat, and now he's fighting a guy like Muhammad Usman, who I don't think is the most skilled fighter, but Muhammad Usman should beat Jake Collier. I mean, Jake Collier is like, what is his UFC? He's 13-9 overall. It's not like he has a great UFC record either, 5-8. And the UFC fights that he has won, he beat Chase Sherman. Chase Sherman can't grapple to save his life. I think everyone knows that at this point. Chase Sherman can't grapple. He beat John Vellante, who is another guy that was 185 and came all the way up. Beat Marcel Fortuna, Alberto Udo. Like, he's beaten just nobodies. And then the people that he lost to, Martin Boudet, another, very, very fat man. Chris Barnett, like, look at Chris Barnett. The dude lost to Chris Barnett. Andrei Arlovsky by split. He could have arguably won that fight, but Carlos Felipe lost a split. Tom Aspinall beat him in under a minute. It's just one of those fights where I'm like, Muhammad Usman, he is probably going to be able to take down Jay Collier and just hold him down for the rest of the round, if not submit him. Like, does Jay Collier even have any jiu-jitsu? I'm not really. I don't believe he'll be able to even get back up if Usman takes him down. I expect Usman to implement a wrestling heavy game plan. Collier gasses out. Usman, if there is one good thing about Usman, it's that he does hold a lot of muscle mass, but he's the more powerful guy than Collier. He's the much better wrestler than Collier. He should be able to take him down and hold him down. Um, if Muhammad Usman loses to Jay Collier, he should be cut on the spot. I don't care that he's coming off of 2 wins. He should be cut immediately. 34 years old. They're both 34. If you lose to Jay Collier, you should be he should get his walking papers before he even leaves the octagon. So Muhammad Usman should absolutely win this fight. I don't know what it is with the UFC making fights like this. The fourth fight in a row, where it's just like obvious what should happen. Not that anything can happen in the sport of MMA, but it's pretty obvious what should happen here. We have Jacob Malkoun, right? A guy who is a grinding type of wrestler, a guy who has very, very good cardio, 28 years old, out of Australia. You know, good good fighter. And then we have Cody Brundage, who on paper you would think he's a good fighter. I mean, he has a college wrestling background. He, has power in his hands, but something about him, he lost his last fight, lose to Cedricus Dumas. I thought Cody Brundage should have easily won that fight. I picked him, and I was watching that fight. I was like, I'm never picking Cody Brundage in another fight again, in the UFC at least. And I'm not starting here. I'm not picking him to win. He lost to Cedricus Dumas, who is a street fighter. That guy, Cedricus Dumas, is a street fighter, and he pulled guillotine against him and couldn't get off of his back. He was getting held down, out grappled by a street fighter, a guy that never, like, he doesn't have a wrestling background. It's not like the dude wrestled even in high school. Cedricus Dumas didn't even wrestle at a high school level. He was a street fighter, and Cody Brundage got out grappled by him. So I'm not picking him against Jacob Malkoun, who actually can grapple, who actually can wrestle, and has a jiu-jitsu black belt to his name. I think Jacob Malkoun, barring a Hail Mary first round knockout by Brundage, I think Jacob Malkoun, Brundage will pull guillotine. That's guaranteed. Malkoun will shoot a takedown. Brundage will pull guillotine. He'll end up on his back. Hopefully, Jacob Malkoun doesn't get submitted here, because I just pray that Jacob Malkoun knows that Brundage is going to be pulling guillotine. That's basically his only threat. Not even that it's really a threat. I mean, he couldn't even guillotine Cedricus Dumas. But even before the Dumas fight, loses to Rodolfo Vieira. Guess what he does in that fight? He pulls guillotine against Rodolfo Vieira, a jiu-jitsu world champion. A world champion. He drops him on the feet. You drop Rodolfo Vieira. You have the striking edge. You're beating him in the striking. And you pull guillotine against Rodolfo Vieira, a world champion in jiu-jitsu, a guy that's much better at grappling. You put yourself on your back against him. The fight IQ for Cody Brundage is just, it's so low. It's so incredibly low. Losing Mikel Oleksiejczuk, you know, his 2 wins, Trayshawn Gore and Dolce Gambula. The Dolce fight, he was losing the Dolce fight, and he actually, speaking of guillotine, he actually did pull guillotine, and it worked there. It did work on that aspect, but he was getting his ass beat by Dolce as well. So Cody Brundage could be 1-4 in his last 5, potentially, because he was losing badly to Dolce until he got like a Hail Mary guillotine. So really, it's just an overhand right and a guillotine. Jacob Malkoun should just out wrestle him, just push the pace. I know Jacob Malkoun's not really like finishing a ton of guys. He is just a grinding type of fighter. But I mean, look at some of the guys he's fought. Nick Maximov beats him. Brendan Allen has a close fight versus him, loses that. AJ Dobson and Abdul Razak Al beat both of them. I think this is Jacob Malkoun's fight. If he loses this fight, man, I don't even know what to say. I would be shocked. I would be the most shocked person if Jacob Malkoun gets guillotined here, or if he just loses in general to Cody Brundage. should be able to out-grapple the guy that got out-grappled by a street fighter. So give me Malkoun there. A little bit of a rant. Tim Means, Andre Fiallo. Now, I wanted to go Andre Fiallo here. I wanted, 39 years old, Tim Means is. He's 39. But then I look at Andre Fiallo and I'm like, nope. I really wanted to pick him. I was like, just because of the age of Tim Means, 39 years old, I'm like, I don't like picking guys that are, 10 years old, or I don't like picking guys that have, 39 versus 29. I'm like, normally it would be Fiallo, but he lost his last three in a row. And if you look at who he lost to, granted, Joaquin Buckley, Muslim Salikov, and Jake Matthews, right? Three good strikers: Jake Matthews, Salikov, and Buckley. All three of those guys finished him. The Joaquin Buckley fight, and by the way, Buckley's southpaw, so is Tim Means. Tim Means does throw up high kicks. I'm not saying that Andre Fiallo is going to get knocked out with a head kick here, but you know, he it's not out of the realm of possibility that Tim Means can catch him with a high kick. Um, Muslim Salikov fight for him was just, you know, he had a good first round, and then I don't know what happened in the second round. He just kind of shelled up against the fence and got beat and got finished standing TKO'd. And then the third loss he had was Jake Matthews knocking him out, which, I mean, Jake Matthews is a good, all three of these are good fighters. I give him that. It's not like he's losing to bums. On the other hand, you have Tim Means, right? Tim Means, albeit 39 years old, and he did get dropped by Max Griffin badly. He got dropped with the right hand by Max Griffin, and that's what worries me about this. Is if Tim Means gets dropped here by Fiallo in the first round, which is possible, will Fiallo be able to just jump on him and finish him? I get worried about that. But if Tim Means can survive one round, which I hope he does, if he survives one round, Tim Means is just going to beat Andre Fiallo, because Fiallo after round one, I mean, I'm not impressed with Fiallo after round one in any of his fights, or at least any of his recent fights. And at least I know Tim Means can go a hard 3 rounds. He's been submitted, I believe, 7 times in his career. Tim Means, he's been submitted quite a few times, 7 times. He's only been knocked out twice, though. It's not like he's getting knocked out by everybody. He's had a ton of UFC fights. I think ultimately, and Fiallo has one submission on his record. I don't think he's going to be looking for the sub here. I think for Tim Means, he just got to be careful in the first round. Watch for any counters, because Fiallo is very good at counter striking. That's how he knocked out Cameron Van Camp, left hook counter, flatlined him. And he also beat Miguel Baeza. You just got to watch out for those counter shots of Fiallo, because Fiallo, he is powerful, but Tim Means, he does throw, front kicks up the middle. He is pretty good at mixing things up, tricky southpaw, and sometimes he is kind of there to be hit, which that is the cause of concern here. But I don't think Tim Means, at these odds, I think both guys are on 3-fight losing streaks. Means is the bigger minute winner. He wins more minutes. If this goes to distance, I'm definitely taking Tim Means. More experience over 3 rounds against the overall higher levels of competition, I would say, over the course of his entire career. So, yeah, I'm gonna roll here with Tim Means. That age gap, though, 39 versus 29, is a little bit worrying, but it is what it is. Sometimes you just gotta take a shot in the dark. Next, we have Miles Johns, and he's taking on Dan Argueta. I'm going with Dan Argueta. I wanted an excuse to pick Miles Johns. I did. I wanted an excuse to pick Miles Johns here, and I could see Miles Johns winning this fight. I just want to say first, say it right off the bat, there is a chance Miles Johns wins this. If Argueta does start to, if he can't get the takedowns, I think this is going to be clear for Miles Johns. But Dan Argueta should be able to get the takedowns. He is a pressure-heavy wrestler. I don't think Miles Johns works well under pressure. I mean, we saw in his last loss, which was the John Castaneda fight. I know it was a year and a half ago, but he got pressured a lot, and he just got broken by John Castaneda, basically. And I could see the same thing happening against Dan Argueta here. Dan Argueta, he is a phenomenal wrestler. He should have submitted Ronnie Lawrence, by the way. Should have submitted Ronnie Lawrence. Um, the referee, I don't was it Keith Peterson, I believe it was, made Ronnie Lawrence tap out, which Dan would have won the fight if Keith Peterson wasn't a complete joke of a referee. I believe it was Keith Peterson. If I'm wrong, I apologize to Keith, but if he wasn't a complete joke of a referee, he would have just, let Ronnie Lawrence, wouldn't have like moved his hand and forced him to tap. He literally forced him to tap or try, like he got him to tap because he like hit his arm. So terrible by the referee there. Basically cost Dan Argueta a win. Um, Before that, he fought Nick Aguirre on short notice for Aguirre. He was supposed to fight. It was Isaac Dolgarian, and that would have been a. I don't know who would have won that. Both guys are like Dan and Isaac. That's actually a really interesting fight because Dan and Isaac are both very good wrestlers. Um, Regardless, though, as far as this fight is concerned, um, I think Dan should be able to get the takedowns. I think he should be able to control Miles Johns on the mat. His wrestling is very, very good. Miles Johns, he's going to be the better striker here. He has the power. His power is like, he does have massive power in that right hand. That right overhand knocked out, who was it? It was Anderson Dos Santos, and that was a nasty, nasty knockout. But I think the pressure will break Miles Johns, and I think ultimately that's what it's going to be. Dan Argueta out grappling him, out wrestling him, and getting this one done. We're up to the main card. We have Charles Air Jourdain versus Ricardo Ramos. Um, I'm going to be going with Charles Jourdain. Um, Man, this card, I'll be honest, this is a tricky card. This is one of the, tougher cards for me to predict. Um, just looking through some of the recent cards, looking at this card, this is one where I'm like, I'm certainly not extremely confident in a lot of people. I mean, there are some earlier fights in the night that I'm pretty confident about, but some of these fights are like the last few were a little bit like the Tim Means fight. Um, Even that last fight, that Miles Johns Dan Argueta fight, it's like, it's kind of, 50-50 in a way. This one's similar. I mean, both these guys are talented. They're both young guys, 27 versus 28 years old. Both clearly, I guess you could say, more to give in the UFC. They're going to be mainstays here, regardless of who wins or loses. Both these guys have a bright future in the company. But for Charles Jourdain, if you look at his last fight, it was against Kron Gracie, and he did very well against Kron Gracie. I mean, I picked him to win. I, didn't expect him to look as good as he did as far as avoiding any submission attempts, like anything from Kron Gracie. Looked very good even when he was on top and in Kron Gracie's guard. He was in Kron Gracie's guard, and Gracie couldn't really do anything. It wasn't like Gracie was, throwing up a bunch of submissions. Like Jourdain was very smart, jiu-jitsu black belt. I believe Ricardo Ramos is a black belt as well, if I'm not mistaken. But in this one, I think generally if I had to guess, it'll probably play out more on the feet than on the mat. And Charles Jourdain, I think, is the better pure striker than Ricardo Ramos. Ramos got outstruck by Zubair Tukhugov. In the first round, when I was watching that, like in the first round, he really was getting lit up a little bit by Tukhugov. And I don't think Tukhugov, I think Tukhugov is actually a pretty good striker for what it's worth. I don't really think, understand why he got cut, but I think Charles Jourdain could probably do the same thing here. He is a very talented striker. As I mentioned, already like 5 times now, like I understand why this fight's being made. One of these guys, the winner of this is probably going to get pushed up closer to the top 15. Um, and I believe that will be Jourdain. Canada's going to get another one. I know they have Mike Malott. I'm not sure if Canada has any other. I know they just had a fight card in Canada not too long ago, but I believe besides Mike Malott, I don't know if they have any other like really big like top 15 level talents. Um, I could look into that, but for now, I know Charles Jourdain is one of those talents. So I do think he beats Ricardo Ramos. Ramos, good fighter. He has quite a few like spinning knockouts. He beat Danny Chavez by spinning back elbow. So, and actually McGregor, after that fight, McGregor shouted him out for that one. Um, I believe he is managed by the same or by McGregor's manager or like the management group that McGregor owns or something, whatever it is. Because I did see a tweet that McGregor shouted him out for that. But I'm going with Charles Jourdain here. I think he gets it done. Next fight on the main card. This is one of my favorites just because it is Brian Battle and AJ Fletcher. I'm going with Brian Battle. I believe the nickname has changed. I don't think he's the Pooh Bear anymore. I think he's the Butcher. But I do think the Butcher, suits him better, especially after his last fight. Which I'll be honest, I thought Battle was going to lose that last fight. Gabe Green is just zero fight IQ, zero fight IQ. But in this one, I am going to go with Battle. He did, I kind of thought Battle was a little bit overrated after that Renat fight, but I was wrong. It's not that Battle is overrated. It's that Renat was underrated because Renat Fakhretdinov is an incredible fighter. So there's no shame in, and that was on short notice too. Something that I didn't even bring into account when picking the Gabe Green fight. He lost to a Renat Fakhretdinov on short notice. No shame there. For AJ Fletcher, he's a lot smaller. Even in the face-offs, he looks a lot smaller. He is the more built, like the more stocky guy. So he's going to try to wrestle here. I think that's pretty evident. Like that should be his path to victory if AJ Fletcher just takes down Battle, similar to how Renat did. But I don't think AJ Fletcher is as relentless as Renat Fakhretdinov. Um, and I don't think I just don't see him being better than Brian Battle in this fight. Brian Battle has a 77 to a 67-inch reach. AJ Fletcher is, he has short arms. Like he does not have a long reach for this weight class at all. Brian Battle is a former middleweight. I think Brian Battle, I know he's not like Fletcher's going to be the like I said the stockier guy, but Brian Battle is going to be, could probably stay on the outside. If this stays on the feet, he's going to pick AJ Fletcher apart. Um, And Brian Battle he's dangerous too. That's one thing. Like we saw in the Gabe Green fight, the dude does have power. He knocked out Gabe Green. Before that, knocked out Takashi Sato with the head kick. Beat Trayshawn Gord. Gilbert Urbina submitted on the Ultimate Fighter, and then he also submitted Andre Petrosky on the Ultimate Fighter. This dude Brian Battle is like he has submissions. Like he's not just like a striker. Like he can submit people too. If you get lazy or if you make a mistake, this guy can definitely submit you. I think AJ Fletcher probably takes the first round over Brian Battle. I think Brian Battle is better as the fight goes on, generally speaking. I know he just got like a 10-second knockout over Gabe Green, but I think more often than not, Brian Battle is a guy that kind of doesn't start as well. I don't think he'll get who knows? Maybe he will get a first round knockout here, but I think against a higher level of competition, Brian Battle will have to work his way into the fights and then probably have success later. I know that he has two knockouts in the first round against Sato and Gabe Green, but against Petrosky and Gilbert Urbina, he was getting out grappled in the first round, came back in the second round, submitted both of them. So I think the same can be said of AJ Fletcher. I think Brian Battle could probably submit AJ Fletcher here. If not submit him, I think he can just take over second and third round. It's going to be a nail biter a little bit, I think, in the first round, but Brian Battle's a tough guy. He's a tough dude. Minus 190 favorite. I think Brian Battle gets it done. I'm going to stop doubting. Not that I was like supremely doubting him, but I definitely doubted him a little bit against Gabe Green. I'm not doubting him anymore. I definitely think he beats AJ Fletcher. And lastly, we have, well, not lastly, 3 fights to go, actually. Featured fight, though. Marina Rodriguez versus Michelle Waterson Gomez. This is a rematch. Not going to spend too much time on this one. I think you guys all know who I'm picking. Marina Rodriguez should win this fight. I did pick Virna Jandiroba to beat Marina Rodriguez, and I was correct about that. Not many people picked Virna Jandiroba. The reason I picked her was because I knew Virna Jandiroba was a better grappler, better wrestler, and I knew Marina Rodriguez had the ability to outstrike Virna, but I thought Virna would be able to take her down, control her, and just be better in the grappling exchanges, and that's what happened. So some of these women's fights are like, a toss up, but I think this one's a little bit more straightforward. Again, Marina Rodriguez is the better fighter than Michelle Waterson Gomez. She beat her once. Michelle Waterson Gomez is 1-4 in her last five. They're both a little bit older, 36 years old, 37 years old. So anything can happen. Women's fights, crazy stuff has happened all the time. The draw last week with Grasso and Shevchenko, which was kind of insane, if you ask me. I thought Grasso won it. Some people thought Shevchenko won it. I don't think a draw is justified by any means. Regardless of who won, it was 3-2 Shevchenko or 3-2 DeGrasso. So I don't know. They'll probably run that back for a third time. In this fight, Michelle Waterson Gomez lost her last three. Obviously, Marina Rodriguez. She got submitted by Amanda Lemos and lost the split against Juana Pinheiro. For Rodriguez, lost to Virna Jandiroba and got knocked out by Amanda Lemos. Yeah, I think Marina Rodriguez just outstrikes her. I've never been really a fan of Michelle Waterson. I think this is a clear Marina Rodriguez just outstriking her 3 rounds uh, and getting the win. This is a very good fight. Bryce Mitchell, Dan Ige. Um, this is one where I'm going to go with Bryce Mitchell, actually. 15-1 Bryce Mitchell. Dan Ige is fantastic as far as he can knock people out cold. He is he does have dynamite in his hands. Um, However, Bryce Mitchell, I think, will just be able to out wrestle him and out grapple him here. And if he does take him down, I think he controls Dan Ige on the ground. Movsar Evloev took down Dan Ige 9 times. And if Movsar Evloev can do it, I know he's a very good wrestler, but Bryce Mitchell is incredible on the mat. Um, I think people are looking at his last fight, Ilia Topuria. Ilia Topuria is a possible future champ. I think he will be a champion. I've said it before. I think Ilia Topuria, you know, I'm not going to say it right now, but when he fights Volk in the future, I'll break that down later. But I think Ilia Topuria is fantastic. He destroyed Josh Emmett as well, so it's like that loss. Bryce Mitchell losing to him does not look as bad. I think Dan Ige is a very good fighter. I just don't think he has the capability to stuff the takedowns of Bryce Mitchell. I think Bryce Mitchell has that farm strength. I think he's a very good wrestler. Not necessarily the best wrestler, but I think he has a good enough wrestling to take down Dan Ige. And once he does take down Dan Ige, I think he'll be able to just control him on the mat. Um, and I really do expect that to happen for Bryce Mitchell. I don't think he's going to get a submission. I think Dan Ige, he knows what he's doing on the mat. He is very capable of not getting submitted usually. But I think Bryce Mitchell will be able to take him down and control him. I think this will be like a 29-28, maybe even 30-27 to Bryce Mitchell. He's just got to watch out for the power on the feet. That's the biggest threat there. But if he can, withstand any, bombs that Dan Ige throws at him and, gets his arms around him and drags him to the ground, gets on top, I think this is Bryce Mitchell's fight all the way. I think this is a clear Mitchell, bounce back spot. I know there's been some rumors about like the ex-girlfriend and the fruit trees or whatever, the crazy stuff that's been going on. But, you got to look past that. You got to just look at this fight for what it is. It's a striker versus a grappler. And in this one, I'm going to be taking the grappler that I think is just, a level ahead on the mat. And lastly, we have another striker grappler matchup, but I think this striker grappler matchup is a little bit different because in the last one, in the Dan Ige and Bryce Mitchell fight, that one, I picked the grappler in Bryce Mitchell because I thought he could get the takedowns and control Dan Ige. Keyword, control. I don't think Mateus Gamrot is going to be able to control Rafael Fiziev on the mat. Will he get takedowns? Possibly. Will he get more than one takedown? I would imagine he probably will, or potentially will. But will Gamrot be able to hold down Rafael Fiziev? I don't think he will be able to. I don't think so. I think Rafael Fiziev and his wrestling defense is actually very, very good. He defended almost all of the takedowns from RDA, and RDA, for what it's worth, is actually a very he's a very competent wrestler, good, very good grappler, but competent wrestler as well. And Fiziev was doing very well in that fight, and even knocked out RDA in the fifth round. Um, Gamma is excellent. His grappling, his wrestling is very good. His control, leaves a little bit to be desired. I just don't think he'll be able to control a guy like Rafael Fiziev. And Rafael Fiziev is the far better striker here. He had a razor close fight with Justin Gaethje. You know, Gaethje won by majority decision. I think Gaethje probably did deserve the win, so I'm not gonna. It wasn't a robbery, I don't think, but having that close of a fight with Gaethje, where it comes down to that last round, it just goes to show, this dude Rafael Fiziev is legit. He's legit on the feet, and he was the striking coach at Tiger Muay Thai. I believe he still is. Dude is incredible. He's an incredible striker. I think he's going to outstrike Mateus Gamrot. I think there actually is finishing upside more for Fiziev than there is for Gamrot. If this fight does go all five, maybe Fiziev starts to gas a little bit and Gamrot starts to kind of get the better of him in like a Marab type of way where he just constantly shoots takedown after takedown after takedown. That did run through my mind a little bit, I'll be honest. I had that the back of my mind, I was thinking will Gamrot have that Marab style where he'll just shoot 40 takedowns and, even if he misses 30 of them, he might get a few, and Fiziev gets back up and he takes him down again. That was a concern I had in the back of my head. But when I think about it, I'm like, Fiziev, he knows what he's getting into in this fight. I think his striking is on a different level than a lot of other guys, and I think he's ready for what Gamrot's going to be bringing to him as far as the wrestling. So I'm going to go with Rafael Fiziev here. If it goes all five, I feel like it could get a little bit, little bit of a more of a toss up, but I think Fiziev has more finishing upside for sure. I think he has an ability to really hurt Gamrot. Gamrot's been dropped before. I don't believe he's ever been knocked out. Gamrot is a very durable guy. Never been finished in his entire career. He got dropped bad he got an overhand left by Dariush dropped him bad. I'm not sure about the Jalen Turner fight, but I remember, he has been hit clean before. He has been dropped before. And I think Rafael Fiziev is the type of striker that can really, really hurt him if he lands on him. So I'm going with Rafael Fiziev in the main event. And there it is, UFC Fight Night, Fiziev versus Gamrot, full card predictions. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.